and good afternoon to everyone. Hope you have been having a great day so far. So the title for today's presentation is Successfully Implementing the Key Elements of Data and Analytics Strategy. As we move forward, I'll briefly talk about myself. I have over 16 years of experience spanning analytics, digital transformation, and strategy. Of late, I have implemented analytics in my current bank, which is Sohar International, one of the leading banks in Oman. I have also implemented data analytics in a large government setup back in India. Besides that, I am also heading the strategy in my current role, and in the previous role, I have been involved in strategic consulting with a Big Four firm. I have worked on large-scale digital transformation projects, on different kinds of digital transformation projects, closely involved with some ed tech firms as well, fintech firms in the product management side. So I've worked across slightly different array of activities in all these companies. So that's roughly about my profile. Now I would like to move forward with the agenda for today. So the key agenda for today is basically talking about the building blocks of the data and analytics strategy. Before we move there, we'll talk about what it means, what data strategy means. Then once we have discussed the key building blocks, we'll move towards the approach that we should take to finalize that strategy and roadmap. And then what are what is a scientific way to actually prioritize some of the use cases, business use cases to pursue from analytics standpoint, right? And then we cover some of the key building blocks such as data quality and governance, data governance, some technology considerations that we should have, the operating model, which will be around the structure, the grouping, the interactions between different teams, and how they are incentivized. And then the most important part, of course, which comes down to the people, the culture, and the skills, right? Skill upgradation. So without much ado, let's move forward. So first of all, before we delve into data strategy, well, let's talk about what is strategy, right, at an overall level. So generally, this is a term which is really big time confused across different companies, and strangely enough, a lot of companies do not get it right. So what exactly is strategies? For many of the companies, it is about being the best company in that particular field, maybe being the best bank, being the best automobile company, being the best real estate firm. But is it really about that? Or, increasing or R&D expand by so and so, right? So basically, competing with competitors to win on the same dimensions is not a strategy, right? So what is a strategy? So strategy is always around competition, first of all, right? And it is about uniquely positioning yourself to serve the customers that you choose, right? You cannot have all customers as yours, right? So uniquely choosing a set of customers to satisfy unique needs through a unique set of business or operational choices. So strategy is about choices, an integrated set of choices that you as a company take to differentiate yourself from the competition, if I have to be precise, right? So let's look at what we have here. So it says strategy is a long term, and remember, long term word is key because strategy implementation itself takes a long time, right? So it cannot be short term. You can always revisit your execution mechanism and revise it, but the strategy itself is a long term set of choices we make to deliver unique value to the customers we choose to serve, not all the customers. Now, with this idea, we move one layer down and start thinking about what really is data strategy. Again, this definition comes from DMBOK, the data management body of knowledge, and it talks around in the same direction. It says data strategist describes a set of choices and decisions that together chart a high level course of action to achieve high level goals, right? It deals with leveraging data. Now, leveraging data, we go one step further, leveraging data for a competitive advantage. The word competition again features, and in order to achieve the enterprise goals. So what we are seeing here is actually that data strategy is driven by business needs. It's driven by the vision of the company. It's driven by the business model of the company, right? So data strategy is meaningless if it is not guided by the overall enterprise vision, right? So that's the basic understanding of what data strategy is, how it should be aligned and thought about. Moving forward now, coming to the building blocks, which are the key elements that lead to the data and analytics strategy creation. So I have jotted down some 6 points. Of course, there are more tenets, more building blocks, right? But these I consider as the most important 6 building blocks to formulating a right data strategy. First one is about business goals and strategy. I just talked about that. It's about aligning to the business goals and strategy of the overall enterprise. Where are we heading? What are our key priority areas where we need to focus? Our data capabilities enhancement all have to relate to that. Second is about data governance. Data governance is about policies and procedures that we build around using data, acquiring data, transforming data, moving data around, security, integrity of data, right? So that's more around policies, procedures, and even accountability around the data, right? Then we talk about tools and technology as the third pillar. Tools and technology is basically the choices that you make for the tools or the software or hardware, and even the architecture, right? The architecture around data architecture and technology architecture that will help us deliver the data analytics work. Now, when we talk about technology and tools, there are different phases and places in which these could be used, whether it is acquisition of data from different source systems, whether it is storage of data, whether it is securing the data, and whether it is visualizing data, right, through dashboards. The tools will be very different at different stages, whether it is creation of an analytics model, whether it is creation of a machine learning algorithm, whether it is pushing the data itself to different systems and platforms within your organization. You will see that there are different tools at different phases, and then whether it is consumptions by the users, business users themselves of those insights. Then comes a very important tenet, which is around people and culture. We will talk about people skill, people capability, how they should be oriented, and the culture, the stakeholders, what's the culture in that company, how that affects. And that's very crucial, because ultimately it boils down to the way people accept your program, people, the way you do change management activities to bring champions on your side to drive the program successfully, right? Then we move to the operating model. This is nothing but the structure, the organization model, the organization structure, the grouping in which the different teams should be formed, right, related to data and analytics, and how they interact, how the flow of information happens, and how they are incentivized in different ways to achieve the task at hand. And when you bring together all of the 5 elements that I just discussed and put them on a business on a timeline which is trackable, that's where we are talking about roadmap, right? So roadmap is a time bound kind of a output wherein we are looking at the future state. How are we going to achieve that future state compared to the current state that we are in? It is time bound. It has your strategy alongside how do you implement that roadmap. It has your 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plan, which is basically nothing but your short wins, right? So all that is contained in the roadmap. Now, besides these 6 building blocks, we also consider, KPI and metrics, right? For example, how do you track where you are on your execution roadmap, right? How successful you are at any given point of time. KPIs and metrics helps us do that. What are the risk mitigants? So obviously, in any implementation, risks are bound to be there. What will be the key risk mitigants of some of the identified top risks, right? And therefore, what will be our success factors, right? We define how success will look like, and what is the budget estimate that will keep fueling our program. Now, this is not a destination which will be reached in a magical way, right? It's a journey in itself. This entire thing is a journey, so we need to keep fueling it from time to time. So the budget estimates are around that. Now we move to the next slide, where we are talking about the approach to the strategy and roadmap development. Here we basically start first again with the basics, which is around aligning ourselves with understanding and aligning with ourselves with the business strategy and goals of the overall organization, right? Then comes understanding the current maturity, current state on various fronts, we'll see. Then we ascertain the to be state, the futuristic, proposed futuristic state, where we should be, right, going down the line. And then we develop the analytics roadmap that will take us there to that future state. Followed by nothing works if you do not communicate well, right? So you have to socialize that entire plan, right? Now, when you talk about aligning yourself, first need to understand the vision, goal, and strategy as we discussed, and then we need to assess the key business needs, key pain points, and priorities. We need to meet different business stakeholders, uh, IT people. We need to understand what are the key pain points of businesses on the customer front, on the product front, on some of the internal issues that they are facing, and then we study that, jot it down, do whiteboarding sessions and all, and note it down. Basically, this is not a very long activity. It should be done very fast, but a very crucial one, because it is going to be the guiding factor for the rest of our activity. Then comes the current state assessment, where we talk about different fronts like data management maturity assessment, right? How the data processes are there, what kind of data sources are there, what kind of uh, data flow, is there a data architecture in place or not, is there a data mart in place, is there an enterprise level data warehouse or not, how is the quality of data, is it clean, what's the extent on different dimensions of data quality, right? What is the extent of cleanliness of data, right? Then we do technology assessment, where I just talked about tools and technology, what all we have, what all we do not have, current processes, in terms of business processes, right? What are the key decision making tools already? Do we have a dashboard mechanism? Are we just following MIS right now, or is it even more rudimentary? Are we at the Excel level, right? So we'll in the current level, we can ascertain all these things, where in which pocket of the organization what kind of maturity is there on all these aspects. And then again, the skills and capabilities, do we have the right people? Do we have data engineers already? Do we have the data scientists? Do we have business analysts or story tellers? So we need to assess that, and then we chart out the future, how it should be. Now, moving forward, just wanted to emphasize on the fact that whenever we talk about this, we data strategy and achieving that goal, we always need to keep in mind the current capability that we have, and the additional value add, that business value add that we are going to do. At any given point, we have to balance them, because when you attain your business goals, it should also mean that you are improving on your um, capabilities, whether it is your data capability, it's your technology maturity, it is your process maturity, it's your decision making tools that you have, whether it's the augmentation of people skill. So both go hand in hand, right? So that's very important. Now, in the ascertaining of the to be state, it's very important to identify key business opportunities, right? What are the use cases that we will go after? We cannot go after everything, right? Otherwise we'll dilute our efforts, right? So we need to prioritize those use cases. How do we do that? We'll talk later in the discussion. Then we look at what business outcomes we are going to go for based on the several rounds of discussions we will have with businesses. We'll come out, we'll freeze on the business outcomes we are expecting through this program based on different timelines and milestones. And then what should our capabilities look like in future on data front, on tech front, on process front, on people front, right? That we need to ascertain in this to be state. And the next stage, what we do is we create that action plan, set of action plan with timelines. Now, this action plan can be a 3-year action plan, just to take an average figure, because again, these programs are not easy and short term, right? Maybe say 3-year action plan with timelines, of course, on the Gantt chart, right? How different kinds of heads and modules will move forward. Then we obviously finalize the phase-wise scope. The entire 3-year plan could be maybe 4-phase activity, maybe phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You finalize the scope for each phase. Mostly for phase 1 and phase 2, and phase 3, phase 4 are more at a vague level, relatively vaguer level. And we also define what are our quick wins in terms of 30-day plan, 60-day plan, 90-day plan, right? Which will go after initially to register that win and showcase it to the organization to get more champions on our side. And then we talk about the operating model. um, uh, should be there, how that particular operating model should be there, what should be the resource availability in executing this plan, how we'll have to augment the resource both in number and type of skill, and of course the metrics to track the progress of our implementation of the roadmap, right? And then comes the evangelizing part, right, where you are communicating this to different pockets of your organizations, right, to your obviously initially to the champions, and then also to the resistors, right, who generally are resistance to such change management and implementation progresses. So now this broadly sums up our approach, how we get there to frame the roadmap and how we'll begin the communication for that. Moving forward, there are certain things that before doing this, all that I discussed as a pre-planning process, we should always ask these 5 questions to ourselves: why, who, what, when, how. When I say this, I'm talking about who are the stakeholders, right? Who is our enterprise level or senior leader champion, right? Who is the data steward going to be, who is the data owner, right? Those kind of questions. Why are we doing this? What is the business driver, right? What are the set of top priorities? How we will do this? What will be the timelines of delivery? When will the data get synchronized or move to the data warehouse, right? So all these questions should basically help us pre-plan the process when we'll start our activities, the approach that I discussed in the previous slide. It's a good tool to basically work through so that you have an effective outcome out of our approach. Then moving forward, just building on the same, the discovery phase where we talked about the areas of assessment, initial assessment that we'll do. It's around business objectives, current data capability, data availability, whether it is internal data or external to the system, right? External data, for example, it could come from bureau, it can come from external external spending habits of consumers, it could come from utility companies, so on and so forth, right? And then the data assets within the company, what all data assets are there, what are the disparate data source systems, what current platforms and products we have, what are the current decision making tools which we talked about, and whether the data, how manual and how electronic the data format is, what's the extent of data quality, what's the variety of data, what kinds of data are there. Because when you get down and really start looking for it, you will find a lot of data is missing on several fronts to do a meaningful insight or an analysis, right? And then really understand the data storage model, how the data is stored, technology assessment, technology stack, IT tools, applications, infrastructure, what are the business processes, key stakeholder mapping. Now, this is important because this is where you get to know key people who will be instrumental to either the success or failure of the program. So this phase is very important to really know who is what kind of person, how to communicate with them, how to bring them on our side, for the success. Organization culture, which closely binds to that, and the skill and capacity assessment. We all do this through a collection of documents, information, artifacts, or we conduct multiple level of stakeholder interviews. We do whiteboard sessions to figure out all this. So all these are tools for us to do the assessment in the discovery phase. And then we hypothesize the 2B state. Now, before that, in terms of analytics maturity curve, different organizations can be at different point on this curve, right? Right from a situation where you are taking just raw data in the rawest form to a clean an organization which is having a process to clean the data, or some organization which at the level where they are able to do standardized reporting, basic dashboard, backward looking analytics, descriptive analytics, right? Where they're asking questions of what is achieved and how it is achieved. And then slowly we move forward to predictive, prescriptive, and autonomous system. Predictive is more about what will happen, and prescriptive is more about optimization, right? The suggestions on what you should do, right? As a business or as a company, what steps you should take. right? So at different levels of maturity, different companies exist. So we need to ascertain at this level where do we stand, right? And that's why, because see, this entire thing is unique. The data strategy is unique to any company. No matter which company you go, their data strategy will never be same, because they are at a different phase of their execution. They're at a different maturity level on multiple fronts, right? So our future hypothesized to be state will have alignment on future data capabilities with the vision and business objectives. We discussed about business outcomes, prioritizing use cases, high level business requirements, and we perform visioning workshops with different department folks to uh, really think about that. And obviously we go through stakeholder interviews, focus groups. In this case, we do a lot of focus groups also to bring out what they are thinking, how they are thinking, what according to them is a priority and what is not, what aligns to the overall strategy of the company and what does not. And then we do a lot of prioritization workshops. This is an important activity that needs to be done at this phase. And of course the whiteboard sessions. Now, there are two extremities of data thinking about data strategy from a company standpoint. One extremity is offense and the other is defense. Right now, the question is, which extremity do you belong to? Does your company belong to? Right now, when you say offense, what we are literally talking about is improving, taking proactive measures to improve profitability or increase revenue or to improve customer satisfaction or to become more to achieve more competitive advantage, right? What if we talk about defense? Defense is also important. Defense is about compliance and regulations. It is about avoiding audits. It's about fraud detection in time. It is about security and privacy. Now, it will be wrong to think of a company lying on in one of the extremities. Ideally, what happens is the companies lie somewhere in between these two extremities, and that could be anywhere. It depends on what's the strategy of the company, how offensive relative to defensive, or how defensive relative to offensive that company is, right? So you can this basically can roll to any coordinate on this spectrum. Now, if you look at this triangle, it's about defense and offense. If you see three examples I have taken in terms of industries. Now, hospital industry works on very compliance based, security and privacy based kind of a setup, and that's why it will follow. It will follow more defensive strategy relative to some of the other industries. Retailers, on the other side, will go after a lot of customers. They will really compete, and they will be more offensive on different fronts, like increasing revenue, increasing product penetration to the customers, and all that, right? Caring about customer satisfaction. Banks, for example, will take both the roles, right? And in some places, obviously, because compliance is very regulatory affairs are very important in banking industry. Fraud detection is of paramount importance, right? So defense is important. Offense is also important because banks locally are looking to their retail, their wholesale banking, they are looking to improve their profitability. They are also looking to penetrate further with their more products to the existing customers or acquiring new customers, right? And caring about customers. So banks lie somewhere in between. This is just to show some of the industries which lie at different layers. And then, as we move forward again towards the business needs, what, according to you, for your company, could be your priority broad categories which you would want to move forward with, right? It could be related to your customer experience. It could be sales, marketing. It could be your product portfolio. It could be risk and pricing, supply chain. It could be improving employee engagement, fraud detection, compliance. Now, these are very broad level, right? You can have a different set, but this broadly covers major areas any company broadly in terms of priority category would like to see. Now, if you go further, take one example, right? Let's take a bank which uh, is focused on these four areas, right? CASA mobilization, which is our current account, savings account mobilization, asset quality improvement, right? The quality of loans and risk scoring and all that. Product portfolio, what kind of products we are taking to the customers, right? What kind of offering we are doing. Then, and the customer experience, customer analytics around customer experience, retaining a customer, uh, keeping the customer happy, selling more to the customer. So let's say if these four are our focus areas in terms of prioritization, now what we would do is through our workshops, prioritization workshops, first of all, obviously we'll list down all the possible interventions through data and analytics that we could look for, right? For example, in customer analytics, we could think about customer 360-degree, behavioral segmentation, customer segmentation, basically, the customer churn prediction, profitability, and customer lifetime value, or maybe next best offer to a customer, right? Those kind of. Similarly, you can list down a lot of specific use cases across different broad categories that you as a business are looking to move ahead with. Now once you are done with this, now next comes putting this on a xy plane where the x-axis is about complexity of implementation and y-axis is about the impact, the return that we get out of this intervention, right? So now if we put all these, if you see, these colors represent different four categories that we chose, right? And all these, now when you put them there, then you see obviously what is desirable is ROI should be high, complexity should be as low as possible. That is the general thumb rule, right? So it's a very simplistic way of putting down your identified use cases and then selecting from there which are our low hanging fruits with maximum impact. But I will urge you not to stop here. I will just take you through a more scientific way of doing this activity. So, what what is a scientific way of prioritizing our use cases, right? So first, what you should do is you should look at the project complexity. Now, when I say project complexity, I am talking about the complexity of the algorithms. I'm talking about the duration of the project. I'm talking about the maturity of the analytics in that company. That is one. Second is the impact, which is again to do with ROI. When I say impact, I'm talking about market share improvement. I'm talking about revenue improvement, cost reduction, productivity improvement, right? All those areas are project impact areas. Consider those parameters. Then think about alignment to the enterprise strategy, whether it is aligned, unaligned, whether it is direct alignment, indirect alignment, then the convenience, right? So, convenience is about how easy it is to implement, how what is the change management going to be, what is the acceptance with the people, is it easily going to be acceptable by the people, how much of a change management effort is needed. Also convenience has to do with the deployment of technology, right? How much difficult the deployment will be, right? So that is convenience for you. And then the breadth of usage within the same business unit as well as across different business units. You can talk about universality of the use case. If you look at all these and you define a scoring criteria around that, right? You can get to a really reasonable set of finalized prioritized use cases that you should pursue. So in the next and the last one is about data availability and quality. Whether it is internal data or external data, you should assess really is the data available for us to do these kind of use cases. So when you look at the use cases, you know, right? Okay, most of the data is actually missing, so we can't even pursue this use case, right? That kind of thing. And how clean is the data so that you can pursue that use case, and that can be a decision point, right? This is how a typical roadmap should look like. It is a Gantt chart which talks about just an example one. Let's say this is milestone one and milestone two. Let's say this is phase one of a project, and there are different kinds of deliverable right here. As you can see on the left side, it's about report automation, different dashboards for CXOs, a balanced scorecard, data marts, and training, which is again happening sprint wise, which is a very good idea. We'll talk about that. Now, this is how, and this is not just one piece of, there will be several such Gantt charts on different deliverables and different things that you have to track, right? And again, we are talking about 30-day, 60-day, and 90-day plan, once we start this, because initial low-hanging fruits and winning is very important for change management and culture. Now, before I move forward, I want to just stop here, and whatever we discussed, I want to now press upon. We discussed about roadmap creation, we discussed about prioritizations and all that. But in doing so, what we need to do is the approach that we need to do is start small. Don't start big. Don't boil the ocean. Okay, start small, deliver quick wins, and then gradually scale. Right, this should be our mantra, right, as we start. Now when you talk about start small, I'm talking about aligning with the key priorities that we identified through that process, really assessing what kind of people are around, what kind of infrastructure is around, what kind of model is around. So if we do not have a chief data officer, appoint one, depending upon the size of your organization. Maybe you don't need also in some cases where the organization is really small. But really do that, figure out who your main stakeholder is going to be, establish the data council for the governance purposes, and educate key stakeholders in the beginning. Right, you need to have them on your side. Right, now, delivering quick wins means identifying, executing those initial set of use cases, and then also around data quality, quick remediation of some data quality on some data sets that we will be using initially. Right, now, quick remediation means you do not boil the ocean. You do not take everything that is in your database and start cleansing that. That's not the right way to go about it, and a lot of companies are caught in that. You really need to identify the data assets or the data which needs cleansing and only do remediation of that in the beginning. That helps support your use cases that you will deliver, whether it is a dashboard or a analytics model. And then gradually scale, then go to the next set of use cases and then execute them, then resolve the next set of DQ issues, data quality issues, and then further gain maturity in data management, and then measure and execute. This is the way you should keep moving forward, right? In terms of building your data capability, at the same time delivering the value to the organization and different pockets of businesses. Now, coming to an important area which is around the data governance. Now, there's some key elements to it again. Data stewardship, which is again about accountability and ownership of who does data management. You know, who defines the key policies, who works closely with the data users to really know what are the challenges, who solves, who understands the root causes of the data quality issues, who addresses those data quality issues. Right, data policy is basically about setting up a policy, a standard policy which takes care of all these items, whether it is data ingestion, whether it is data transformation, storage, how the different roles and responsibilities are defined, what are the data standards. All these will be inside the data policy. And data standards is basically a consistent way of collecting and storing data and managing the data. Data security is around aspects like giving access management to right people. No one unauthorized should have access, right, to the data. It's a big issue. And also about personally identifiable information, right, because we have to adhere to a lot of regulatory requirements here, right? So that's important. Now, data cataloging is around a business glossary, right? It's like a business glossary, and it links the technical metadata to business metadata. Now, when I talk about metadata is nothing but data about data. It gives more information about your other main data, right? Where that data is. And the metadata management is more to do with managing that as well. And data lineage is basically tracking it back to the origin, tracking the data back to its origin, where it originated from, and what all, noting, tracking all the transformations that happen along the way, right? So data governance is a very important thing. And what basically is, why was the need for data governance felt, right? So in a lot of organizations there are multiple versions of truth. The value of the same data element in different systems are present due to delay in the feeds, non-proper flow of updates, and systems being out of sync. There are no clear owners often, right? There are owners for applications and systems, but there are no clearly defined owners for data. So it becomes imperative that we do something about it. And then there's lack of structured documentation around a write-up or in standard format around the data assets and the elements which are used at the enterprise level. So all these basically necessitate something which can help us resolve for this. So in essence, you can also say that it's a process of establishing accountability and authority in all aspects in and around data. Now, moving forward, some key points that we need to discuss around is, generally there is a feeling that it's the IT who should take care of, in any organization. It is the IT that should take care of your data governance program. It's a big myth. Okay, it's not like that. While IT is not completely away from it, but it's the business stakeholders who should own the data governance program. It's the it's that is where the data originates. The data is ingested in the system, right? It is where the data is maximum used, right? So it's the business stakeholders. They are the ones who decide the rules of how do you make sure that the quality of data is fine, right? So it is not appropriate or not correct that you hold IT responsible for your data governance program, right? So that is one very big myth which it should be taken care of. And frameworks that we create for DG, which is the data governance processes, should be repeatable and scalable. Now, by framework, what I mean is, see, data governance framework is about policy, it's about the processes, and it is about the roles and responsibilities of people that you need to define, which could be your data stewards, data owners, data producers, data consumers, and even data governance managers who are looking at the data governance program. And the DG meeting should basically be driven by a rolling 6 to 12 months plan. It should not be meaningless on and non-time bound. We should know there is a broader mid or short term plan which the team is constantly working towards through these meetings. And the business participants should have a clear role to play, because in lots of companies where, especially in the beginning stage, businesses think that this is not their headache, and they should do nothing about it, which is painful actually. Now, entering into the data quality aspect, quality of data is pivotal to decision making, and both at business level decision making and operational decision making. And good data is what? What is good data quality? Good data quality is nothing but a data that is fit for the purpose that we want to use it for. This purpose could be selling to the new clients, it could be addressing regulatory concerns, or it could be providing specialized services, right, in terms of custom products which will help the client achieve their goals. So it's really about fit for purpose data that can be used for the purpose it is meant for. So that's the key about good data quality. Now, as per Gartner, if you talk about the criticality of data, on an annual basis, organizations are losing almost $13 million to poor data quality. It's a huge, huge number. And in today's time, data asset is truly strategic for this particular reason. What is the impact of poor data quality? What happens if you have a poor data quality? So we have lost revenues because the sales opportunities have been lost. Marketing returns are lower. There's a reputational damage out there in the market. There are litigations which people have to fight for. There's a loss of confidence and trust in the customers and public, right? Again, closely related to your reputational damage. And then inaccurate reporting, right? Your reporting itself is not correct. What decisions will you make, right? So inaccurate and incomplete data can lead to regulatory breaches, delayed decisions due to manual checks, and suboptimal trade strategies. Now, talking about why is good data quality important? Why do we need good data quality? It's the result of what we just talked about, right? It will give us higher marketing return on investments. It will increase our sales. It will improve our reputation, and it will improve our legal compliance and save us a lot of money, right? So data quality is truly at the helm of all the data management that we need to do for right decision making. And then these are different dimensions of data quality that will, measuring whom will give us a measure of the overall data quality in the organization. This is around accuracy, completeness, consistency, timeliness, uniqueness, and validity. Now, when I talk about accuracy, I'm talking about degree to which the data represents the real world, right? How close to reality, how accurate it is. Completeness is whether something is missing or the data is complete. Is it completely available? All the data sets are completely available. Consistency is about same data appearing in different databases, different uh, uh, business units, data sources. Timeliness is about whether the data is being fetched in a timely manner. Is it being scheduled in the timely manner? Is it being used in the timely manner, right, for right decision making? Uniqueness is about not having duplicates, right? So basically there should be no duplicates related to the same data, right? Whether it is customer information, product information, or any other information, supplier information, for example. Validity is more to do with adhering to the rules that business has defined, right? So whether it is meeting the requirements like format, type, and range, all that will come. So basically, when we do the data profiling, uh, we really look at all these six parameters. There are more parameters, but these are the six major ones to assess where we stand. And this is an iterative process. After every frequent periodical manner, we have to look at these dimensions to see how much we have improved, and we need to have a dashboard and scorecard to monitor all this. Now, this is the typical data quality life cycle. Starts from data discovery to data profiling, data rules, data distribution and remediation, and data monitoring. Now, when I talk about data discovery, I am talking about getting the data. What are the different source systems, right? From where to get data, using the right mechanism to get the data, to the next stage where we are profiling the data using those six dimensions that I talked about, right? Where you are profiling the data to find how clean the data is, to what extent is the issue there, and which is more of an issue, what kind of measure is a dimension is a bigger issue, and also looking at the possible set of business rules and finalizing them in this process, right? Data rules is about actually applying those rules now to ensure and check the data cleanliness against those rules, right? And whatever is the output report of that data quality check is then passed on to the data distribution and remediation. They use that report, right? And then remediation begins, right, on those data quality issues. And then we close this with data monitoring, where we are monitoring the remediation process of the data, as well as we are having a dashboard and a score card kind of a setup. We are constantly checking, on those dimensions where we stand, right? And it repeats and repeats and repeats. Now, moving to the tech and architecture side, I just hope that my pacing is okay with this till now. So now, technology and architecture is really about the choice of the right tools that I talked about, designing the data architecture, data flow diagram, right? Organization-wide applications. See, there could be different applications across the organization, different projects that are running, strategic, non-strategic, different platforms in place. We need to really take into account all of them, because data has to flow through all this mess in a lot of permutations. So that is important, and the infrastructure to support all this, right? So basically, how do we get data into the organization? How do we manage and look after the data? How do we visualize the data? Different kinds of algorithms, ML engines, all these will have their own tools. All of these will have their own requirements. And then the provisions to push the data to other systems and usage by other businesses. Now, what is also important is the data volume, the volumetrics of data, because a lot of historical data will also be involved, 5 years, 6 year, 10 years data. The technology needs to take care of that. The infrastructure, the hardware needs to really take care of the volumetrics. So that assessment needs to be done, right? Data architecture, data flow diagram, as I talked about, different applications, different platforms need to be connected on this diagram to see how the data is flowing, and what kind of it is a blueprint, right? It's a blueprint which will guide the team to work on the data initiatives or the analytics initiative, rightly, right? And then around the data warehouse, whether we need a data warehouse or we need to revamp the data warehouse, or we need to have a specific data mart designed for a specific function or use case, right? And of course the data sources, databases, all these are technical considerations. What tools to have, what kind of data sources do we have in the organization, what is their nature, what kind of data do they store, right? All that. And then comes the security and access part, which we discussed about. All these need to be basically gone through in the maturity assessment phase, and then also the to be state, and then work towards that. Again, depends on the maturity of the company. All these things will be at a different maturity level, right, for all these companies. And as you can see, for different types of requirements and phases, we have different kinds of tools available, and the brands that are providing those tools. For example, for visualization, we have Power BI, Tableau, Yellowfin, Click. All these are the major visualization tools for your dashboarding and scorecarding purposes, right? You have Informatica for ETL, extract, transform, load, which basically takes ingests data from the data sources and puts it in the staging area for cleansing, and then further loading into the data warehouse. Talent is another one, so on and so forth. So at this point, you are actually considering, you are making creating a matrix, and actually putting down all these points, and then key considerations for your ETL tool, key consideration for your data ingestion tool, right? Key consideration for your database. What these considerations are, for example, it could be the features of the tools. It could be how much flexibility and scalability is possible with that tool. What is the cost of each of those tools, right? What is the annual maintenance cost that will come with it? What is the comfort and experience to the internal team? How much experience they have on this tool, right? Both ways. Sometimes comfort is not good also, right? You tend to support a tool which is not right just because you have experience in that tool, right? So you need to be, and these are practical examples from my own experience, right? Compatibility with the existing tools and database, again the same thing. It's good and it's bad, so you need to really take a call. Vendors implementation prowess. Do in case you do decide to go ahead with a vendor that will implement one of these tools, one or more of these tools, we really need to assess the vendor on that front. So tools again is a very important part. Now we move to the organization design consideration, which is getting more into people and how they should be organized and all. So now there are different ways in which a data team can be present in an organization. Also depends on the maturity of that company, right? So one way, and there are two extremities again. One is the centralized way of doing things, and one is the decentralized way of doing things, right? So centralized basically is about analytics being separate from business, reporting directly. Maybe it could report to the strategy or to directly to the central authority in terms of operations team or any other team centrally. Basically, it's not part of business, right? Now, other model could be where there are analytics teams within the businesses, and then there is a center of excellence, right? Now this center of excellence looks overarchingly at the analytics work being done in the company, and there are analytics teams within the businesses who are doing directly their own business needs based analytics, right? Here we are talking about a case which is hybrid between centralized and decentralized, but which is COE centric. COE team is heavy. It has a chief data officer, or if not chief data officer, someone who is looking after that, and he has a team. He is basically most of the data assets are being owned by this team. Most of the alignment and analytics task is being originated from this team, and business teams, analytics teams are service related data they are owning, and basic analytics stuff they are doing. It's not mature yet. Next level is where still we have a hybrid model, but it is just a facilitation that happens from COE. The actual action shifts to the analytics team sitting inside the businesses. So they are now thoroughly responsible mostly responsible for data assets, for doing the analytics, for doing data quality, right? CO is just a facilitator. They are looking at the overall vision. They are making sure there is crosstalk between different businesses, and the overall analytics that is happening there. They're also taking care of data governance, right? So all that comes centrally, and business inside the business analytics team is working closely with their people, users, to define and consume data in a way that will directly result in uh, their business outcomes. And then the last is decentralized, right? Decentralized is not having any central setup. It's completely inside the businesses. Now this is not desirable, ideally speaking, because there's a lot of silos, whether it is in terms of different data. Imagine marketing team having its own analytics, retail team having its own analytics, IT team having its own, operations team having its own, and no one talks to each other. The data silos, right? People silos, interaction silos. So that is not desirable, but this has its own advantage in parts. It really get things done as per the outcome desired, but it has its limitation, as I talked about. Now, overall, if you look at it, all these four models have their set of advantages and disadvantages, right? For example, if you have a central model, with a COE, you have huge alignment on the vision, and we are really very closely tied to the strategy of the company and the vision of the company. But same does not happen when you are in the completely decentralized model. So ideally, when a company starts, the best approach is, also again it depends. Initially, it's better to start relatively centralized, hybrid, but relatively centralized, because it's easier to get the initial outcomes. It's easier to direct everyone, right? So it's generally good. And then slowly, as you mature more and the business analytics becomes more prominent and they are more capable now, then you can slowly move to the next hybrid model, which is more COE facilitated, but the action really happens in the analytics front. So that's how we could look at uh, doing these models. Now it's already, I talked about the structure. It's also about the interaction, the way these teams talk to each other, right? That is important. And the alignment. When I talk about alignment, it's the bonuses that people get. It's the KPIs that is set and cascaded down to the employees in order to get things done. It's about the performance management aspect. So all this that helps things get done, things moving, right, through people. Now, the question about getting the right skills of people, right? So broadly, very broadly speaking, there are three areas. One is your business, so business skills. One is the tech skills, and the third is the analytics skills. And we have different kinds of subset skills, which is a combo of either two of these, or one alone, or three combined, right? So basically, if you look at these skills, this could range from data engineers, data scientists, which is at the intersection of technology and analytics, visual specialists, people who work on dashboards, scorecards, your business analysts, right, who are your people who are closely taking business requirements and translating them into analytics action for the data scientist. And then business managers, who are basically business people, who are business users, and program leaders. These are business leaders who are leading or owner of the data domains, different data domains, right? And the data architects who are working on it, so on and so forth, and chief data officer who sits in the middle at the intersection of all these three skills, right? So now, obviously, all of this will not be there in every organization. So we really need to look at the maturity of the organization and what combination of these will be necessary. Often also what happens is a combination of skill sets may be present in the same person. It's very highly unlikely, but that also happens. Sometimes a data, you can find a guy who has a data science skills and data engineers skills. These guys can be used or leveraged to do a different kind of analytics problem in your organization. So all that consideration will come into picture. Early on, business analysts are super important. If at all you need someone, business analysts are the people, because they are the ones who are really the ones who are finding out the priority use cases, low hanging use cases that you will fight for initially, right? So they are very important up first. And then what should happen is, as an organization, because you may not have maturity, you might have to start with the help of a vendor on an outsource agenda, right? You CDO will have to sit down with the HR team to finalize a variety of job descriptions of all these skills that I mentioned for future hiring purposes, right? Currently, to start with, they can look for from the current staff who all is basically capable or who can be actually uh, onboarded on this program. But it's really about filling the remaining roles over the maturity and the capabilities that we build over a period of time by hiring externally. Now, the pursuit of right skill, I talked about different scenarios. Like one scenario is where all these skills are different in different people. Like I just took, for example, three main major skills like data scientist and business skills and data engineer. That is one scenario. Second scenario is where data scientist and data engineering skills are present in a same guy and business skill is not present. And third is where there's a guy who has all these three skills, highly unlikely again, but very, very highly unlikely. But there could be organizations where these skills are present or might be needed on the maturity curve, right? Now, obviously, the kind of analytics that you can do with all these three kinds of situations is very different. In the first case, you will be doing basic descriptive analytics, basic dashboarding, scorecarding, and all that, right? With the second one, you can bring more of ML, more of advanced analytics, because the person has both the data management skills and the statistical modeling skills. And the third one also understands the business. So that's where you start making impact, right? The third scenario is the desirable one, but it's not often a feasible one. Now, the decision to source these right skills is threefold. First is you can build it internally by capacity building and skill enhancement of existing skills. Second is you can outsource this to an external party or a vendor, right? You can leverage their expertise. Good thing is that you can find top of the top people outside. But the problem, of course, is they are very costly, and you do not get much skill building inside your own organization. Building has its own disadvantages. Is that you might not find the right skill within your same company, very highly likely. And the good thing is that at least you know people around, so it's easy to it's fast to get those people. And hiring is about more of a it's a medium term kind of a thing where you hire specialist people over time for apt skill set and have them. The challenge here is again regarding cost and also about retention, right? Because a lot of people may not want to come to your organization or your region, or they might leave soon. So that is the challenge associated with. But the good point is that you will get in-house capability and you will be able to source at will the kind of people you want. Moving forward, it's really about the regular training and skill development that we need to institutionalize. It could be ad hoc training, it could be continuous training through videos, articles, case studies, simulations, knowledge sharing, and it could be and it has to be supported by post training assessment. Otherwise, you will not know whether people are learning, whether they are using it in the job, whatever has been taught to them. So that needs to be done through a set of academy and the main academy within your organization, right? You can put up incentives such as certifications for the employees. I talked about cross-functional knowledge sharing sessions where you discuss failure and success stories of some cases with some other departments. And you can invite guest speakers on this subject matter, whether it is advanced analytics, whether it is data management, whether it is data warehouse. You can get guest speakers from time to time. And then different modules, the coverage of training across different modules that you can see right now on your screen: dashboard, tools, self-service, data science, data marts, data quality, so on and so forth. And then so this piece is easily the one of the most important, if not the most important, is around the change management and adoption of whatever we talked about, right? Because there's no point if there is no adoption and buy-in. Now, it is important to engage key stakeholders early on, right? Because they will be your proponent, right? Programs proponent. You have to educate them. You have to communicate and co-create at every stage of define, build, and adopt. You have to educate. You have to communicate, co-create, and also talk about impacts. At every stage, you have to talk about impact. Then create leadership champions, right? Once you identify, you create leadership champions in senior leadership, because it helps a lot. And then map the stakeholders, and at every point you will manage the perception management is very important. Sometimes it may be, may look like not a good right thing to do, but you often need to do that because you need to move forward with some resistors, and you want to make it a big success. And then you can do quarterly newsletters, right, which talk about whatever you have achieved, and some nuggets, information nuggets about what this term means, what that term means, so on and so forth. And then you can have training sessions, educational mailers, blog articles going into different staff in all corners of your company. Then you can have engaged leadership, your company's leadership, through discussion forums like viewpoints. You can call them leadership viewpoints. You can get in external experts for your leadership training. They can train them on different aspects of data and analytics, which can then trickle down effectively down the hierarchy. And then getting the seat at the table for analytics is really important, at the board, also at the employee level, right? So what exactly have you achieved, what you are achieving, what is the value that you have been able to do, it all need to be shown at these forums, basically. And the benefits have to be early on. Practically speaking, I'll tell you from my experience initially here in the bank, I literally walked into the setup meetings with chief risk officers, chief financial officer, chief transformation officer. All the senior leaders, I used to take them through what I have hypothesized in terms of how the journey will look like, where we stand in terms of our data quality, maturity, what we will do for data quality, what will be the benefits in their respective areas. You need to do that initially, otherwise it will be different. And once you do that, they actually start talking about it in bigger senior leadership forums. And people, down the hierarchy tend to follow their leaders, right, in their organizations. They tend to follow the take that they take, right? So that's very important. Now, I will summarize this presentation with certain points which may jeopardize your entire data strategy implementation, and that must be, I'll not expand too much on those, each of those, in the interest of time, but I'll just let you quickly go through these points. First is lack of right formulation or clear understanding of business strategy will obviously derail everything. Business not taking ownership of the data governance, etc. We talked about that. Conceiving data strategy as a IT department imperative. Again, it's an issue. It should not be like that. Not identifying the right early use cases and business impact value. Lack of vision of leadership on advanced analytics program. Lack of well-defined analytics role and skills needed. Lack of effective communication and evangelizing. Data cleansing on the entire data set. Again, boiling the ocean should not happen. Misconception of innovative new platform and legacy one. Now, just to touch upon this one, since I didn't. So often the thought is that the legacy systems should be completely abandoned in order for us to implement the new ones and innovative ones. That's not like that. They can always coexist. Your legacy systems and the new innovative platforms can be brought in and can be layered in a way that both start working together. So you don't have to do that. Lack of effective collaboration within the businesses amongst themselves, as well as business and IT. And lack of senior leadership involvement from IT and business is almost suicidal for the program. You cannot afford that. And a lack of effective data governance, which holds everything together, right? So that is very important. With this, I would like to end this presentation. I hope I was not too late. And if I am, I'm sorry for that. So that's where I would invite you, David.
Amazing. I'm back, Vineet. I'm back. Man, that was some great content. I absolutely loved it. And actually, if there are people out there, please drop a little virtual thanks in the chat, please, because we were really, really lucky to have you here today, Vineet, because as I say, absolute top quality content and loads of depth to it, actually. And as I was watching along, I must admit, I was kind of thinking to myself, we need to get Vineet back and do more of a deep dive rather than just a lunch and learn. So just as that's coming in, I will jump into the chat, Vineet, because it is nice to know that there are people out there that have enjoyed it. So first of all, Helene Snelting, thank you, Vineet. You shared a lot of useful info for analytics leaders. Apologies for having to drop off, which I think a few people may have been doing because obviously it's like timing. But thank you, so good, brilliant chat, really insightful. Thank you. Clapping emojis, Vineet. Thank you for the great presentation. Matt Press, thanks very much. Clapping emoji, thank you heaps. Thank you. I'm keen to know more about data strategy. Thanks, Vineet. Really good. Thank you. The list goes on and on, man. So I've been a bit inundated there, Vineet. So I am conscious of time that there were a couple of questions that have come in. I've got a couple myself, but I think we may have to put a little cap on the questions for today. But I am very much open to getting you back if possible, Vineet. So I guess before we wrap up, how was it for you, Vineet? Did you enjoy presenting the session? You've clearly got lots of experience in this area.
I really did. I really loved presenting, and while I didn't know what was going on the background, how people liked it or not, but I really loved it. I'm not sure how fruitful and how beneficial it sounded, but I think some of the things and layouts that I presented, if implemented, can really change the way this particular program is implemented in organization. I hope people really benefited from the time they have invested in this presentation from me.
Man, 100%. I have no doubt that they will have done. Again, just looking through some of the comments coming in, super clear, very useful. Thanks, great presentation. So it's definitely been very, very well received. And actually, I think it'll be very beneficial for people to look back at the recording as well, because as I say, it was an absolute gold mine of good content, Vineet. So as I say, because of timings, we do try to keep this to that sort of 1 hour slot, people dropping off to meetings and all that sort of stuff. We will draw things to a close, but I would like to just say, obviously, thank you very much, Vineet, for sharing with us. Obviously, it's clearly taken a lot of time to pull the slides together, and it's much, much appreciated. We will keep in touch, and if possible, try and arrange something else. And obviously a big thank you to the 100+ people that joined us at home, wherever you are in the world, to be with us. So I'll hand over to you just for the final word, Vineet, and then we'll draw the webinar to a close. So over to you if you'd like to say thank you or anything like that.
Yeah, really. I mean, thank you very much, David, for inviting me. It was a really privilege and a very different kind of a feeling. And I hope, everyone got something or the other in different formats for their respective, context.
Amazing. 100%. 100%. Well, I hope you enjoyed the rest of your Friday, Vineet. I hope everyone at home enjoys their day, their weekend, and I'll catch up with you all again very soon. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.